Welcome to Suzanne's studio, and I'm Suzanne Barnett, your host. Tonight we are presenting part 2. My guest is Doug Nelson, who is a representative of the Veteran Services of Santa Clara County. We absolutely had to do another show because what you are going to see, you will never forget. Thank you. That's quite a responsibility. So you got to do pretty good. You hear? Okay, Doug. We're going to talk about a couple of major things that we talked about in the first show. But the fact is that you are a Vietnam, what do you call it?
I'm a veteran.
Veteran.
Yes,
I couldn't think of the word veteran. And as a result, you still have
post-traumatic stress.
Stress disorder, yeah. We talked a lot about that, but just in case the audience didn't see show number 1, would you explain it to us?
My take on post-traumatic stress disorder is that it's profound, gut-level outrage. Outrage, you say? Well, I had to pour judgment when my son was 2 years old to let him watch a barroom fight on TV, and he started crying. What's the matter, Colin? They're breaking up the furniture. Nobody broke up furniture at his house. But that's where the analogy ends, because it's not stuff that's being broken. It's everything you think you can expect from the rest of your life. And it's not just that people die, it's how they die. It's not like in the movies. It's not like that French painting in Versailles where the handsome young officer is reclining back and he has a dime-sized spot of blood on his chest and everybody's looking on all concerned. Bodies are blown to pieces. Children who happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Your friends, your buddies. Pieces, shattered skulls. We're outraged by this.
Of course.
You're outraged.
I am. I can't believe it.
There was a rabbi during a peace event who said, "Thank God for the gift of outrage." We're sane. That's why we're outraged by this. And what do we do when we come back from the war? We try to wrap this stuff up. It's like this jungle jacket. This is what we wore in Vietnam. You roll it up. You roll it up as tightly as you possibly can, and you put it on the top shelf of the closet in the back of your mind. And you try to leave it up there. My dad tried to leave it up there, and he was very successful. My dad was the master of keeping a lid on it. He had to keep busy. But what he kept a lid on was friendships with other men. He was asked to be a deacon in the church, and he just didn't want to do it. Didn't want to participate. He kept to himself. Not a violent man, not a particularly angry man, just had to keep busy. Cut the tree in the yard in 6 inches at a time until we didn't have a tree. That was my climbing tree. Broke my heart.
But he couldn't talk about it. That's what you're
Would
saying.
not talk about it. There was a silly TV show called Combat with Vic Morrow, and the enemy fell like bowling pins. And when things blew up, they had little hidden trampolines in the ground that they bounced up off of. That's not the way it goes down. And I said, "Hey, Dad, is that what you did?" "Yeah." "That must have been so cool." "No, let me tell you something. It wasn't cool. I can't talk about it. Don't ask me again." And I came back from Vietnam with stories of my own, and I couldn't get out of him but a partial sentence, and he couldn't go on any farther. He said, "Guys who are really there don't talk about it." And incidentally, the worst thing you can do with a returning veteran is ask him, "Did you kill anybody?" They think you want to hear, they have a word for it, combat porn. They won't think you want to hear combat porn. And they're not going to give it to you.
Combat porn.
Yes.
Yeah, pornography.
Yes.
Yeah. Boy, that is really a wonderful term. What happened to you when you came back from Vietnam?
I tried to put it behind me. I tried to keep it hidden. I was a mess. My poor little wife was a very gregarious person. She loved parties and dancing. I hated that stuff. I didn't hate her, but I stayed at home with a baby so she could go dancing after work with her friends because I couldn't stand the noise and I really couldn't stand the crowds. And she would say to me sometimes, "You're so weird." I say, "I know, but I don't hurt anybody. It's just the way I am."
Can't help it. What have you done about your condition?
I sat on it for 40 years. I didn't know
Really?
what it was I was dealing with. I work with veterans in Virginia, but I did some post-traumatic stress disorder claims on the psychiatric ward. I thought you had to be a psycho to do a claim.
Really?
I didn't know. No one told me any different. We didn't get any
Yeah.
training on this.
Yeah.
And when I came here, I didn't come here looking for this job. I saw it and it looked like I could do it and I applied and the county hired me to do this. And they sent me to the vet center to do post-traumatic stress disorder claims because they didn't want to do them. They threw Brer Rabbit in the briar patch.
I'll say.
I found out I had this. And in dealing with these other guys, I could relate to them
Yeah.
because I have some military knowledge and I'm kind of an amateur military historian. And in those days, we had to prove the guy was in combat. You know, as if an artillery or armor vet had to prove he was in combat. What did they think a 19-year-old kid did in an artillery battery on a remote fire base? Don't you think he would have come under fire one day in 365? I had to Google the unit and match that with the story the guy told and convince the VA that he was in combat.
Imagine, I can't imagine that.
I don't have to do it anymore. The head of the VA, Eric Shinseki, fixed this. He's a combat vet himself. He probably has post-traumatic stress disorder. He lost part of a foot in a minefield in Vietnam. He understands us. We don't have to cite a date of an incident to claim post-traumatic stress disorder anymore. And more disabilities are related to Agent Orange than there used to be.
Oh, tell what is that?
Dioxin was the principal ingredient of a chemical they used as a defoliant. They sprayed this from planes over jungle areas. Well, the Viet Cong hid in jungles. Well, jungles were on high ground, and the creeks and streams drained this high ground. Where did we get our drinking water? Rivers. I don't think that the technology was there to filter dioxin out of the drinking water. So if you have type 2 diabetes, if you have Parkinson's disease, if you have prostate cancer, lung cancer, ischemic heart disease, B-cell leukemia, hairy cell leukemia, multiple myeloma, these things are directly tied to Agent Orange. They don't understand the mechanism of action. They don't know how this stuff works in the body. It's a correlation kind of thing. A lot of science works this way. In the presence of this phenomenon, service in Vietnam, this other phenomenon is likely to happen, these health problems. We have them. There's no diabetes in my family. I have diabetes.
From
Agent
that,
Orange.
yeah.
And I wasn't out in the jungle. I never saw a jungle. But I drank the water. We listened to the enemy's communications and tried to figure out what he was doing. We were quite good at it, actually. In fact, we were called radio research. And the rest of the Army didn't know what we did. The infantry guys would dump captured radios on our doorstep because they thought we did research on them. But it did answer one question. The Morse code signal would go. They brought us a bicycle crank generator. And immediately we could empathize with a poor little North Vietnamese guy out there trying to keep the generator going.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what happened when you first got home? Because we
Okay.
just talked about that a little bit. But how did you finally adjust? Did it take 40 years, Doug?
I didn't begin to heal until I went to a vet center.
Okay.
They wouldn't treat me here because I was dealing with the guys from that vet center, and they saw it as a conflict of interest. So I had to drive over the hill to Capitola. And the counselors there, my first counselors were women. Guys, don't hesitate to tell this stuff to some lady.
Mm-hmm.
Women are very good at this. They empathize. Let it out. Let them ride in the Humvee with you. Let them walk point with you. It's okay. It's okay to lay it on them. Let them know what it was like. And I reached a very important conclusion when this counselor was a male, and he helped me to realize, hey, Doug, I got to stop wallowing in this stuff. I've got to stop defining myself in terms of this. Mm-hmm. I can control this. I can get control of this. I can be in charge of my own healing process. I'm going to backslide. I'm going to slip up once in a while. It's okay. It's okay to slip up. It's okay to tell my wife, honey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. That's not me talking. You know what I'm going through. It's okay. It's not you. We have to do that with our kids.
How, now you have been able to heal. You'll never be
Somewhat.
cured, you
Yeah.
said.
Yes, somewhat.
But how do you impart that to other veterans? And we did talk about what happened to women in the first show. I think you need to mention that.
It's heartbreaking, the women who are assaulted in the military. I hear these cases every once in a while. And I used to go to the gym next door and work out. And I couldn't do it after talking to one of these women because I would hit the exercise machines too hard and hurt myself.
Oh.
Now I walk. Walking is much more healing for me than going to a crowded gym. You know, a normal guy looks at women and all these protection instincts kick in. But we have these pathological people who, I don't think it's even about lust, it's about power over someone else. Mm-hmm. We have men in the military who are assaulted by other men, and these guys really don't want to talk about it. But they have to eventually talk to somebody. We've got, right here in the Palo Alto healthcare system, we have some excellent therapists, some excellent doctors who can help them with this. Very often the doctor will refer the patient to me to do the claim. The doctor will say, I'm treating him. It's okay. I'm taking care of her, but I need you to do the claim, do the paperwork. But in order to do the paperwork, she has to tell me her story. I ping off of this. I do. If you have post-traumatic stress disorder, it's not the easiest thing in the world to work with people who have it.
I was going to ask you, how do you deal with that?
Professionally, you're supposed to leave it in the office. But if you care about these people, you're walking a tightrope. If you care about them, you're going to do the best job possible for them. And you're going to internalize some of it. That might be one reason behind my retiring right now is we veterans numb ourselves and we avoid situations where we might get hurt, so we avoid relationships. I know guys who can't have a relationship. I know people who can't have a relationship with a person of the opposite sex because they don't want to be hurt. They're leaving themselves open. They're leaving themselves vulnerable. And they just don't want to do that.
So what happens when you really get a difficult case? How do you get through it? I mean, I know you have to, but
Yeah.
how can you remove yourself from it?
Do the best job on the claim possible. Present the facts I had one come back today on a woman who was assaulted, and they were very, very fair with her. And if her disability is worse, she can apply for a higher percentage. Here at Palo Alto, maybe it's California, but we have a good attitude toward things like that here. Because believe me, there's some cowboy regional offices elsewhere in the country where women don't fare well at all. And if a guy comes in and says he was assaulted, they're just going to snicker. We've got it right here. People can talk all they want about how dysfunctional California is. We do this right. We do veteran services right here, and we do treatment right here in the Palo Alto system.
Thank heavens for that, Doug. You were talking in the first show about what is your pet project?
I'm doing some writing, a short book about post-traumatic stress disorder. But what we want to do, too, is to get the veterans to help other veterans to do their claim.
Please talk about that.
And the way we approach this is, hey, walk point for that guy. For the times he walked point for you. Take care of that sailor for the times that he kept the planes running off of that aircraft carrier to give you the air support you needed. It doesn't matter what we think of the war. We served, we went. Our politics are absolutely irrelevant. Some of my guys will be shocked to know what my politics are. It's okay. Because you put somebody's life on the line, you put him out there with a mission and a weapon, you got to take care of him when he comes back. Neglecting this is not an option.
How can you get that across to the world, to the United States? How do we treat our veterans that are coming back now?
Better than we were treated, I can tell you.
Really?
Yes,
oh, that's good to hear.
No one is telling these young men, stand over there with the crazy people. They're treated with respect. The problem now is that the resources are a bit thin. We have so many of them coming back with us that maybe they have to wait too long for their first therapy session. Or maybe the therapy sessions are too far apart. The poor guy who lives in some corner of Montana may not want to drive 400 miles to Billings to go to a vet center. And maybe we need to task professionals, private professionals, with helping these folks.
Yes. That is certainly viable. Do you think that could happen?
I think it's going to happen. My daughter is in Kansas. She's dating a guy, an Iraq War vet, and he's getting better. I really think he's getting better. But at first, he was watching the video he shot from his Humvee every night on TV. And Amy would ask him, hey, Lee, what are you doing? You're watching the same stuff over and over. He said, I'm looking for the wires. The truck in front of him blew up. He thinks he missed the wires that detonated the IED. For one thing, the IED might have been detonated with a cell phone. Maybe the wires were that well hidden. Maybe the enemy is not stupid. You always go to war with the expectation that the enemy's a bozo, and we always find out that he's going to fight you smart and he's going to fight you hard. Especially when he perceives himself as defending his own country.
Should we ask the veteran, I mean, it's such a general question, but should we ask the veterans that are coming back about their experience? I mean, just casually?
They're not going to want to talk to you about it. They're going to think you're fishing for combat porn. What he wants to hear is welcome home.
Yeah.
Don't lay your politics on them. Whether you're far left or far right, don't lay politics on these guys, because they're adults and they are going to reach their own conclusions in their own time. When I got back, I knew John Kerry was throwing his medals on the Capitol steps. And I knew there were other things going on, a lot of political, a lot of patriotic rallies and stuff. I didn't do either one. I carried trays of dinners up and down steps in a restaurant. I kept busy because I didn't want to dwell on this stuff.
Let me ask you a question. When did they come out? When did the United States or the whole planet come out recognizing what this condition is? Because did we hear about that 50 years ago? Post-traumatic stress
Wasn't called
disorder?
that. Combat fatigue.
Oh, is that what it was called?
In the Civil War, it was called soldier's heart. It was shell shock in World War I, combat fatigue in World War II in Korea. So many of us veterans acted out and misbehaved in the 70s that there were vet centers for us in the 80s. And much to our credit, our government tried to deal with this.
But to no avail?
No, we have vet centers because of what they did in the late 70s and 80s. That's where the vet center movement came from.
I see. So something was done at that time.
Yes.
But not before then.
No. We had a guy in my neighborhood who was a combat veteran. Dad said he was. That's how I knew, because I never talked to him. He lived by himself in a shack in the woods, and he would try to do little odd jobs. So he sold ice cream on the street at one time, and we kids made fun of him and called him the drunk ice cream man and acted as if we were staggering around the street, and no one corrected our behavior. I still think about the drunk ice cream man.
I bet you do.
We had a guy brought into the vet center off the street and said he was in artillery. And I got out of him the name of a guy who was killed. And now he is in Montana being the cowboy he always wanted to be. We got him $3,000 a month in compensation because he's in pretty bad shape. 100% service-connected disability, pays nearly $3,000 a month. He deserves every bit of it.
Of course. What are his disabilities?
Post-traumatic stress disorder, entirely.
Really?
He came to us telling us that people were trying to kill him on the street. He lived with other homeless people, and it's pretty rough out there. But we got him out of that environment. It took over a year. But we got him out of there, got him the treatment he needed, and he always wanted to go to Montana, and off he went.
So there are some good stories.
Oh, yes.
Are you optimistic, would you say, about what's happening right now?
I'm optimistic about most of the cases I see. But I look at some of these guys and listen to their stories, and the way they're treating their wives, the way they're treating their children. I can preach to them all I want. I've got no business preaching to them. I should be preaching to myself. But you got to fix this, brother. You got to get some help. I've had wives bring their husbands in. I saw that TV show you did on Channel 15 in San Jose. My husband's got that. I'm bringing him in here to you. And I have to turn to the husband and say, you know why she's here with you, brother? You know why she's here? She loves you. Let's start, for your sake and for hers and for the kids, let's start this healing process. You got to try. I know you're distrustful. You got to trust somebody. Trust me. Let this healing process begin. Let it begin right now. When you leave here, I want you to go to the vet center and check in over there. They'll make you feel welcome. You'll be well treated there. And the last thing I say to each of these guys when they leave my office is welcome home. It's an insider joke with Vietnam vets. We give each other a welcome home because we didn't get a welcome home.
Wow. Boy, you are so effective. You really are. And
Sometimes.
I talked about the TED.com,
Yes.
and I think you absolutely have to find out about that, and you have to give your talks, your experience to them. It'll be all over the world. I am really honored to have you twice on my show. I can only wish you the best, and I hope you sleep at night, but I hope you get out there, don't retire from this. You need to move on. You do, Doug.
Captain Casey would be proud. My dad would be proud.
Well, I'm so proud to have had you on my show twice
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
with my wonderful crew.
Thank you for caring about us, because it seemed for decades that nobody cared about us. And we're finding that people do. And we very much, on behalf of all the vets who struggle with this, of all the men and women who deal with this every day, we thank you.
Well, we thank you. You must keep this up, please. Really. We still have about a minute, and I do want to say the veterans for peace. Just one sentence in conclusion.
Our mission statement is we raise awareness about war. We're recognized by the United Nations as a non-governmental agency. There are only 5,000 of us nationwide. We believe in nonviolence. We're not confrontational. We don't get up in anybody's face. We don't do any name calling.
That's a wonderful way to end. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
And I want to thank our crew, and I also want to thank our audience for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this show, and we all have to do something about this. We really do. Anyway, I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.